Hey guys, it's Isabel. I'm here today at the Texas Teen Book Festival with Adriana Mather, author of How to Hang a Witch. Would you like to explain the premise of the book?
Sure. So my main character, Samantha Mather, she moves to Salem 300 years after her ancestors hanged witches there, and immediately no one likes her because of her last name. So she has this situation where people are dying, creepy things are happening. It's October, it's gorgeous, there's leaves and lots of fall pastries, and she has to solve the curse of her family.
It's wonderful. I read an arc of it through Justine, who I'm here representing today, and it was just amazing. So you guys make sure to check it out. The hardcover is even like prettier than the paperback. It's gorgeous. I love the little thing on the back that they added with her, like, you know, filling in the...
Right, yeah, it's a journal entry, so it's from Cotton Mather from History, and then Sam's
Did you have a say in that, or was that something
well,
they kind of...
there's the chapter in my book that sort of does that, and I think that's where
they got
that's
it,
where they took it from. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. So my first question is, this book is centered on a lot of your own family history. What was it like doing all of that research and going back through your own history, you know, having to learn more about the witch trials in general, you know?
Well, I always knew I was related to Cotton. I just never understood what that meant. So I went to Salem once, and I was asking questions, you know, about the trials, and people had all kinds of colorful things to say. Everything from, oh my goodness, you're related to him, to, oof, that's not a good name here. And so I thought it was amazing because I had never been a villain. You know, I've never really been mean to anyone, so this had never happened to me before. So all of a sudden I was a historical villain. And it was very interesting. So the moment that I realized that, I thought, I need to know what's actually happening here. And the farther you get into the history, the more you realize there aren't clear answers. So it was a no-brainer to write a mystery about it and use the history as like clues to piece it together. So and modern Salem is amazing. So writing a story set there is a dream.
It's awesome. I saw the video. I can't remember what YouTube channel it was on, but they did the feature on you, like going there and your experience, and just like everything in the background, like just how the town looked. I mean, like the best place to set up. It was so...
We filmed pretty in a graveyard. Because, you know, mildly
even
creepy.
the book trailer was like, it was like creepy, but like intriguing, like it just summed it all up. It was perfect.
Yeah, well, besides writing, I act and produce, so it merged my worlds of book writing and then also film stuff. So that trailer, a lot of that was me being like, oh, let's do this scene.
My next question is, in the author's note of your book, you say, history isn't some distant remembrance in my family, it has a pulse. Not many people can say that they have such deeply rooted ties to history such as this. Did that weigh heavily on you at all while writing this book, or were you more concerned about telling Samantha's story versus sort of giving this history lesson?
It's a balance, because the history is so important, and when you actually research it, you realize how much people's lives were affected. I mean, people lost their lives, and so I wanted to write something that paid respect to those people, using it as a, hey guys, like this still happens, just in another form. But it also has to be fun and engaging, otherwise who wants to read about it in the first place? So it's really this balance between having like a really entertaining bits of your story and also weaving in history in a way that makes it real and palpable and people can understand it. So it's a line to walk.
I mean, I'm working on sort of my own witch story, so I picked up, you know, the book The Witches of Salem, that was the whole thing. And just reading the beginning, it's so much to take in.
It is.
And so much information. The more you got into it, I mean, it's such a controversial and just very confusing you know, story. So to insert that history in an interesting way, because it is a lot to take in and understand. I mean, I thought it was perfect. It wasn't too much, but it was enough to understand what exactly is going on in this town and why people feel this way. You know?
And I mean, truth is stranger than fiction. And there is some of the stuff that happened. If I wanted to, I couldn't write something that creepy. You know, I just it's so fascinating and dark, and there's still so many unanswered questions.
Yeah.
So the history was no problem. It just lended to the storytelling. But
Supported
yeah,
so well,
yeah. But you do have to be careful because you're like, and then there's this creepy thing, and you're like, okay, I have to draw the line somewhere. Otherwise, I'm gonna have a 1,000-page book.
Yeah,
that no one's
especially
gonna
what
be
you
able to
said,
live.
you know, like how much it matters to the people, it affects them. I mean, you want to tell your story, but it's like, you know, how do I not cross that and offend those people, or, you know, because that is their family. I mean,
right. And how do you actually bring that history to life in a way where those people feel respected?
Yeah, definitely. My next one is, you also say on a basic level, social uncertainty and fears created an unstable emotional environment that allowed for things to spiral out of control in Puritan Salem, where once witchcraft accusations were the norm, bullying has taken its place. Group agreement and group silence are equally as deadly. My question would be then, when I read this, I was very intrigued by it. I love reading, you know, theories and contemplating ideas and all of that. So that just really caught my attention. After reading the whole book, just that part really changed my whole perspective of the story. Was this idea that you described here a large reason as to why you wrote the book, or were you intending to present How to Hang a Witch as a lesson to others about how easily what happened then can happen again?
The bullying was actually a large reason that the story came to be. It's sort of a chicken and egg scenario because there's so many things that form a story and why you actually make it. But the bullying, it's so real and the psychology is so similar, and actually a lot of people who are affected by bullying, if they self-harm, many of them die by hanging, which is incredibly heart-crushing, and was actually one of the hardest parts about the research of the whole thing, was realizing how similar these things were, and how we look at history and we go, oh my God, that would never happen. These people were crazy. How could this, you know, we would never allow something this dark to happen again. And it was so obvious to me that it was still happening. And that people were just like, yeah, well, that's a problem, but it's not like this thing. It's in my opinion, it's exactly like that thing. So I wanted to make that point without hitting people over the head with it, because no one can hear you when you're saying like, pay attention, pay attention. Instead, you have to make it accessible. So that's another line to walk. You know,
that's so interesting though what you said, you know, about the suicide and that being hanging, because, you know, like you said, people don't want to see it that way, but in a crazy way, without them doing it, it does have that same effect, because, you know, them not hanging them doesn't mean it's not happening.
It doesn't,
it's just this new form of how it happened.
Exactly.
Wow, that's even more like interesting and thinking about that. I just read a book, Girl in Pieces, by Kathleen Glasgow.
Oh she's lovely.
Oh, I love
and that book is beautiful.
Yes. Oh, I love I love the attention she brought to that subject, and that's what I told her. I like emailed her after. I was like, not many people talk about that, especially a young adult, and you went for it, and that's so important.
Such honesty too, such an emotional honesty, which is incredible.
I mean, the diversity of young adult, it's a lot of like, you know, college things and family, and that subject, like, that's realistic for this generation and for teenagers, is that, you know, suicide and all of that. I mean,
and it's you have to think about all of these things, and to just ignore them. I don't know that I could just write a story without actually thinking about the psychology of the people involved in what's happening. So,
otherwise you're not respecting them. Were there any sources you relied on a lot while writing the book?
Primary transcripts, which were really hard to read because people just spelled things any which way they wanted, and they capitalized any letter that they wanted. So sometimes you would read it and go, I don't know what's happening. But I read all the trial transcripts, and I tried to get whatever I could get that was actually happening in the time, because there's all these theories about it, but I wanted to hear what people said and how it was treated. And you can't even get a clear picture from that, because the people taking the notes are a very particular type of people. They're all essentially powerful men in the community who had their own opinions about what was happening. And so it's in those notes. I mean, it's colored by the fact that they felt certain ways about religion or witches or, you know, whatever. So I tried to get down to the basics and weave those pieces in where I could. I put things that people actually said or that actually happened to them in their lives. It's just that there's a lot of holes in information because it was the 1600s, so you can't get everything.
Yeah,
but
interpreting all of that.
Yeah, and you can't include all of it. That's the hardest part, is choosing which bits you're going to put in, which bits you have to cry over that they didn't make it.
You can't put it in. Yeah. What was the most frustrating part about writing, editing, or even trying to publish the book?
Frustrating. Let's see. Okay, the unknowingness of a creative project is probably the most frustrating part, and it shows up in all different areas. Like everything you write, you never know what's going to happen with it. You don't know if your publisher's going to accept it. You don't know if it's going to sell to a new publisher. You don't know if it's going to be a huge hit or if like 5 people are going to read it. You have no idea. It's always a question mark. And so the way to proceed forward is sort of muddled. You're always like, I don't know what to do next because I'm not sure what's happening. So, but your entire life is like that. Even when you achieve these enormous successes, sometimes there's huge failures too. It's always a question mark. And so you just have to get really comfortable with the fact that you can't control it, which is terrible for me because I want to control everything.
Did that ever, like you were saying, that idea of like, maybe 5 people read it, or you don't know, like, just ever hit you writing it? Because I know when I write, I write things and I'm like, I like it, but are people actually going to care? Like, are they going to want to read this?
I think the general feeling is that the people who are supposed to read it will find it, whether that's 1 million people or 5 people, right? And that the things you write connect with people in a way that some people get it immediately and other people just have no idea what's going on. And those people aren't your readers, and that's okay. So I don't know. It's such an odd thing because you almost can't have a feeling about it. Because if you do have too many feelings about it, you go up and down. And that's the thing with writers, is like we're very introverted and we're shy and we have a lot of emotions and like we get our feelings hurt easily. So you go through these editing processes and you go through books being great and books being terrible and all this stuff, and you just have to be okay with it any which way that it happens. And not feel as much, try to pull it back.
Just be happy with it.
Exactly, no matter how it turns out.
Are all of the characters in this book inspired by anyone in particular? If so, who, and can you say what their relevance to the story was?
Oh, interesting. Well, there are characters that are supposedly descended from accused witches, right? So I tried to pull bits and pieces that I could, like what information I could get, and some of them there's just almost no information. So I tried to pull bits and pieces where I could, made a lot of stuff up. They're fictional characters, 100% fictional, but everyone else, I would say, as a writer, I will pull, like I steal things from people all the time. Just I'll hear a conversation in a cafe and I'm like, brilliant, like I write it down on my phone, So there's stuff like that, but it's for me it's never one person or one source, because I kind of look at personalities and see like you can relate to anyone, even villains. Like you should be able to relate to every single person in the book, and maybe they're not your type of person, but you should understand them. So it's always like people are people to me, there's like a connection, there's like a connective thread, and so it's more of this or more of that, but
Sam and Elijah's romance was one of my favorite parts of this book.
Yay.
I loved it. Was their relationship fun to write, and what scene between them was your favorite?
Oh wow, I loved writing their relationship because it was one of those things where when I started writing it and they disliked each other so greatly that I love a good argument. So I'm always game for that type of thing. So I think I actually really enjoyed writing their spats in the beginning, and then I loved I don't want to give too much away, but like I loved when there was some resolution to that and they finally got over the hump, like the floor picnic, for instance, is a
that's my favorite. I love that.
There's scrappy, difficult characters that don't give you their heart right away. It just appealed to me. So I had a great time with those two.
I loved it. so well written,
Oh,
especially
thanks.
because you like wanted more, but you also
Yeah.
understood like there's so much more to the story
Right.
than that. You know, it's not the real focus, but
It's not,
It adds
yeah,
to it,
yeah.
Was this book planned out from the beginning, or did it sort of like take on a life of its own as you were writing it?
Okay, I wrote it once. The entire thing,
Yeah.
just like I didn't even know what I was doing.
Just
I was
wrote.
like, book, yay!
Yeah.
Like just like going
Yeah.
for it, which is great because I had no expectations. There was nothing wound up in it, and then people read it and they were like, this is a YA book and it's a YA voice, but you haven't technically written a YA book, so I have no idea what I was talking about. I was like, what?
does
And
that
so
mean?
I like, because and I read books, but I didn't really think of them in categories that way. So I went back and I rewrote my book entirely from the first to the last. So the first time I wrote it was a complete pantsing exercise. Like I just did it.
Just writing.
The second time I wrote it, I plotted it, I organized it, like all the clues were like spaced out. And granted, still the in-between stuff is all pantsed, but I had like a solid
more
structure.
plan, yeah.
So this book was written twice.
I know when authors say that, they're like, you know, my first book didn't make it, or my second, or my third, but you know, the fourth and fifth,
Yeah.
those you guys have read those. I'm like, how do you even muster up the energy?
I know. Yeah, there's a
even
whole
two,
process.
yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
It takes forever too.
I mean, after writing the first one and then having to write it again, did you feel at all like sort of challenged in a way, or like,
Absolutely challenged. I had to get over myself.
Yeah.
Essentially, it was the biggest
once
exercise.
You write, it's like, do that, you know, like
Yeah, and you have to let go of your ego 100% because you realize there's a story and then there's you.
Yeah.
And even though you are the one writing it, you can't control it 100%.
Yeah.
Like there's all these elements that just happen.
Yeah.
So you have to get over yourself.
Yeah.
And it was probably the best lesson to learn up front because after that, my editing was so much easier because I
Yes.
never rewrote it from beginning to
Yeah.
end again. So I was like, anything's better than that.
Yeah. Like, was there anything in the first one you really like wanted to hold on to, like you loved it, and you're like, I just like, now that I'm looking at it, like, I can't keep it, but
lots of things, like lots of little things.
Yeah.
In the first version, actually the descendants were ghosts as opposed
Really?
to, and Sam didn't know it till like halfway through the book.
Yeah.
Like she didn't realize that she
Wow.
lived in a boarding
would've been
house
so
and she
interesting.
saw them, so she
Yeah.
thought they were other boarders.
yeah.
Totally different, 100% different.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
I mean,
No.
I love them in the book. They're
Yeah.
I love their characters.
So there was
Yeah.
like a lot of spookiness that
Yeah.
that I loved, but the version that is here now is
So much.
definitely the best version
Yeah.
of the book. So you just, you can also, if you really love a line, which happens to people too, you just like, I have like an entire document, like an 800-page document of throwaway stuff that I'm like, one day.
Maybe I'll use that later. And my last one, this book is written fantastically. You wove the history and just so beautifully, interestingly. Do you have any plans to create a story like this again? You know, weaving in that history, or with more of your family history, any other parts of it? Or do you have other places you want to explore with your writing, like other genres or?
Well, the sequel is already written, and it's called How to Sink a Ship. So it's the same characters, except for Sam, instead of seeing ghosts from the Salem witch trials, she sees ghosts from the Titanic. And my ancestors survived the Titanic. So we have a letter that's going to be in the book that no one has ever seen. So I'm really excited about that book. It's already written. It's being edited. So that's happening. And then I'm now just playing with the ideas for the next book, which will be outside of these books.
Yeah.
But I also kind of in my heart, I'm thinking maybe another Sam book sometime in the future with Sleepy Hollow. So that could happen too. Who knows?
That must be so like amazing, like interesting, just to have that much connection to history. Who else can say that?
It's bizarre.
You have such an amazing like playing ground to,
It's a lot of fun.
Wow.
The research part is always, I have to pull myself out of it because I realize I'll never write the book if I just keep doing the research, and you can't fit that much in like a fictional story anyway, so it's hard to control myself sometimes. Also, I wanted to write like 5 bazillion Titanic passengers, and I was like, no one's going to be able to follow this if
Yeah.
I do this, so I'm
Yeah.
going to have to pick and choose.
Yeah. I mean, when you told your family that you were, writing these, books and using that, I mean, were some of them, excited, or were a lot of them kind of like, hold up,
Oh, yeah. This is my father's side of the family, and I would say they're all, they were all excited about it, but in that very traditional, like, New Englandy type of way, which is very much like, that's great.
Yeah.
And then when the book actually came out, they were, like, ecstatic, but there was never a big discussion about what I was doing or why I was doing it. They thought it was nice that I was writing a book that was about, wow. They're lovely.
Oh,
So, yeah. There's a lot more now that the whole thing's out.
Yeah.
I get a lot of phone calls.
I love that. No,
I love
awesome.
it too. Yeah.
Thank you, Adriana, for this
course.
interview. The book is amazing, you guys, and it is finally out, so make sure to go and buy it and check it out. And I have a review of it up on my blog that you can check there. And I think I should have something about it up on Justine's website, the magazine, so I'll leave links to all of that. So thank you guys for watching, and thank you again.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
You're welcome. Thank you. Bye, guys.